Excuse me, I'm gonna make some phone calls real quick.
I thought your minestrone was the best I've ever had down there at Redbird. Oh, if you'd have it on at least once a week, I'd be there.
You should have a prime rib.
I've had it.
Down.
That's wonderful.
And that may be my prep cook and my chef, they make all the soups. So.
Yeah, it was great. Could live on it.
Great, I'll call the meeting to order at 12:01. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag, of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. You. We'll roll call for attendance. Ms. Arp.
Here.
Mr. Byer. Has anyone heard from Mr. Byer?
I think he's coming right now.
Hey.
There he is.
Right. Mr. Byer? Ms. Ensley?
Here.
Ms. Conley?
Here.
Ms. Howland? Ms. Powell?
Here.
Mr. Ringler is here, Mr. Brisinga is excused, and Mr. Wilks is excused. Public comments, those citizens wishing to speak on agenda or non-agenda items, we allowed a maximum of 4 minutes to address their concerns. This is the only time during the DDA meeting that citizens will be allowed to address the board. Please state your name and address for the record if you would like. You would like to speak?
Okay, so, Miss Rose asked me to be here today.
Excuse me, ma'am, can you put your name on?
Yes, my name is Tammy. I'm from the Cedar Springs Public Library.
Thank
Miss Rose Powell asked me to be here today. She wanted to add a discussion item to the agenda. So I'm here to talk about that when we get there.
And,
Okay.
Ms. Powell and I actually talked about this together.
Oh,
You know, to-
Do you want to do it at the?
Ma'am,
It's
It's
on the,
on the agenda. This is public comment.
So happy holidays, everyone, and looking forward to speaking to you when we get to it.
Conflicts of interest, any ex parte communication? Ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion.
would this,
second,
would this be the point where I want to add a discussion about the library's snow removal?
There is a discussion on that's paving.
No, that's a separate.
Okay.
oh, okay,
So, you're asking to add a item D on a new business?
Yes,
I guess I thought it was part of C when I
Ma'am.
skimmed it. Is it part of C or do we need it as a separate item?
This would be a
probably
Separate
separate,
item.
because
D.
it's library property.
Regarding snow removal at the Cedar Springs Library.
Yes.
I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda with the addition of item D.
A motion.
Support?
All in favor?
Aye.
The opposed, same sign. Thank you. We'll move on to consent agenda, approving the minutes of the regular meeting of October 31st and a motion to accept and file the financial report along with a motion to pay the $300 towards the electrical extension cords in the heart of Cedar Springs.
May I ask a question?
Certainly.
Do we know what happened to the other extension cords? And,
We don't know, but we have a suspicion.
okay,
So the lights that are in the trees
Uh-huh.
obviously are hard to steal.
uh-huh,
Extension cords on the ground are easier to steal.
right, right,
We suspect that they were just stolen last year prior to being picked up.
okay,
This year, after the lights are done in January, beginning of February, we'll just make sure to pick up the extension cords before anybody else can.
okay, thank you.
Entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as written.
I will make that motion.
Thank you. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Move on to unfinished business. Seeing none and hearing none, move on to new business. Discussion on B2 zoning prohibiting box signs, and there is some information in your packet.
So I just wanted to bring this to your guys' attention. This is something that's in front of the planning commission, but obviously as business owners in the downtown community, you should be aware of what's going on. There is a prohibition in the city sign ordinance, which has existed, at least since 2008, against box signs. Which, there are a significant number of box signs in the downtown. We also have signage, I'm not sure I'd call box signs, but it's just basically a piece of plastic or a piece of metal, which has been essentially screwed to the front of a business's, front. I think the opinion, at least of the planning commission, is that it kind of makes the downtown look not as nice as it could. So they're gonna be discussing, box signs, whether to keep, remove, or, add to, that prohibition. But I thought it was, important, more so for the discussion of subpart B here. Any questions you might have or thoughts you might have about that? We can move on to B.
You're saying that they have been prohibited
They have been.
The
Yes.
ordinance is,
despite there being numerous signs already in place?
Yeah, so you can have something in place and then prohibit it, and then any signage that's already in place is considered non-conforming. Meaning it can stay in place and you can replace the face plate, but you cannot replace the structure unless it becomes a conforming structure. So, but part of the problem is, in addition to box signs, which are inherently defined as something with a casement, a structure around it, we also have ones that are just like Plexon sheets or plastic sheets are stapled to the front of buildings, which are not technically a box sign, but I think, would probably be prohibited in the same vein of what the planning commission is going for. So one of the things
So
that,
you're talking about internally illuminated signs,
correct,
such as exists on the brewery, for an example.
correct. Which of course, that signage was approved of before I came here. And I believe in enforcing the laws that are on the books. So, I'm not sure that signage would have been approved of today. And of course, I don't know who was here at the time enforcing the city's laws. But that, as you see, is prohibited under the ordinance. So one of the questions that I'm sure the planning commission is going to have is, what does it cost businesses for the installation of signage? I talked to one of the board members earlier this week who said that even basic signage can be in the range of $4,000 to $5,000. It's a significant amount for a starting business. So we may have, the option to do some kind of stepped program where you can put up a basic sign now, then at the 2 or 3 year mark, they have to, change their signage or something. But I think the signage in the downtown can look bad sometimes.
What about the existing box
That's,
signs?
that's what he's saying, that those wouldn't be, but I guess I'm failing to understand those signs are expensive and they do they would be favorable over a sheet stapled to the side of a building. So I guess I'm failing to understand the motivation behind a box that's internally illuminated.
So this is part of the issue, is that this law has been on the books for long before I was here,
Mhm.
at least a decade before I was here. So I don't know what the motivation of the planning commission and the city council was at that time.
So you're
But
talking about allowing.
I'm talking about what do we want to do from here? Because I don't think there's too many people who are going to say that either of those signs is a superior sign compared to, say, a channel box sign or a channel cut letter sign or a projecting sign or an awning sign or any other options. Or do we say something like, okay, we'll allow box signs, but it has to be something other than a rectangle. But that's part of what the discussion is going to be moving forward.
with the planning
with
commission.
the Planning commission. So as business owners, you guys should be made aware.
And this
Usually
is,
channels in front of you.
Mine are like flags. metal posts.
Those aren't considered box signs.
I'm not taking a position on this.
No, the only, in if I'm hearing the description aptly, then the one that's on the old shop would be the only one, a box sign.
Well, so
Is there,
there is a definition, and I think it's a horrible definition, but there is a definition. And that's part of what we're talking about is technically, even if you have channel cut letters, but if they're in a, let's call it a frame with a plastic front and is illuminated, it appears to be a box,
sign.
which is why maybe this is as simple as a definition, but there's gonna be a cost analysis for new businesses. Do we really wanna have a new business, coming in and spending $10,000 to $20,000 on a sign?
loom would then be a box sign, right?
I mean, I'm failing in my head to see it, but again, if it's basically a case with a plastic front and it's illuminated, yeah, it probably is under the definition. So there's the question then is, does this board have any opinions that the planning commission might like to hear about what, from a business perspective, the cost of starting up a business and investing in your signage versus having signage that looks good for the downtown?
I was gonna say, and what you think is attractive. I mean, obviously, you have businesses, you care about what your signage looks like.
But
We need our ordinances to reflect that.
I also hate to say it, but the downtown does attract some, let's say, less capitalized businesses sometimes.
Well,
And-
I understand that, and obviously now our business would be affected by this, but even looking at some of the other signs that are the newer signs, those are the more attractive signs in town. I'm not sure why we want a prohibition on those.
Well, so again, keep in mind, if they've
It always
already
was there, I understand that.
been approved, they can stay, but we're talking about into the future.
If they break.
Well, that's exactly the issue, because I'm facing an issue with a sign right now that may need to be replaced, so.
Yeah, and what the unfortunate part is whether they were legally installed back when they were permitted, or if they were, illegally installed at some point after that. If the frame remains in place, you can continue indefinitely to replace the plastic in the front. But we're talking about a subtle, long-term plan here to get rid of some of the older, junkier looking signs. And hopefully eliminate the, piece of plastic that they screwed at the front of the building, which I think looks horrible.
And not to jump too far forward, Mr. Chairman, but this is also a piece of how we want to think about the facade signage improvement program going forward.
So that does kind of lead into.
Okay, but again, are we throwing the baby out with the bathwater in this? You're talking about newer signs that are, the Ford dealership has an eternally illuminated sign.
Is it a wall sign?
It's on the side of their building.
Okay.
So you got a problem with the definition here, and I think this needs a lot more thought than just we're gonna throw out box signs.
Well, hold on a second. Box signs have been illegal since
I
2000.
understand that, but you're updating and doing these now. This discussion's probably beyond the scope of this board. You're asking for an opinion from this board.
Well, I want to start the conversation because again, we have businesses who come in and they're not capitalized. They're not going to invest in their signage, and I understand that. But they're also making the signage in the downtown look bad.
Understood, but like I said, if you're prohibiting all of that, and you are prohibiting now a capitalized business from coming in and having an attractive sign that happens to be internally illuminated by this definition, this is internally illuminated with plastic, metal, or similar panels. You're throwing out everything for any new business. Is now gonna be at a competitive disadvantage because they're gonna have a sign that is less noticeable than an existing business. This is bad definition. It's bad policy,
And on the books since at least.
Understood.
2008.
but we have an opportunity to fix it, right?
What I'm talking to you about. So it'd be nice to know, what do you mean by attractive sign? You're saying that there are box signs that are attractive, which I'm not disputing. But I think traditional rectangle, with a face that you can replace indefinitely. I think a rectangle is a boring shape whenever we're talking about box color or box signs. And you're basically creating a sign that'll be there forever, because it's way cheaper just to replace the face than put up a different type of sign.
And I don't disagree with the motivation, but again, this definition, I would argue, is overly broad. And that might be something that the planning commission has to decide what is attractive. But to throw out all illuminated, internally illuminated signs, which is what we're attempting to perpetuate here.
And so part of the discussion at the last planning commission meeting was, if it is a channel cut box sign, does that meet the definition? In other words, it's not a square, it's not a rectangular, it's got a little bit of shape to it. Does that make it more attractive and therefore kind of permit the box sign that otherwise would be prohibited?
We're
This
not-
is,
we're
this
not
is in
seeing
front of the
Canada.
planning commission right
Okay,
now
I
to
understand.
try to further clarify what this, and remember, they can change what this should be and make a recommendation to the city council to then adopt that ordinance as a change.
Fully understand. I guess that, to summarize what I'm saying is, yeah, they need to change that because that is overly broad and prohibitive, I would argue.
I think what they're looking for is from business owners in the community,
Guidance.
what kind of guidance can you provide them that is reasonably priced for new businesses, but looks good? So we can clean up the downtown.
I think you've got, excuse me, but I'll agree with Mr. Ringler. Got opinion, you got two people, you got two opinions. You got 10 people, you got 10 opinions. You got a board, you got that many opinions. How do you opinionize some, if that's the right word, opinionize? What a box sign is. I mean, by definition, what is it? If he's right, if you take a, you got nothing. What's
The
left?
definition is here. It's an internally illuminated sign with a solid frame to which plastic, metal, or similar sign panels are attached.
Right, what's the option?
Well, there's signage that you can, like the Redbird's got flag signs. that we
Flags
call them.
on 2 metal posts,
You
yeah.
know, we also have projecting signs, we have awning signs, we have where it's permitted, round signs, they're,
So what we're saying, we have an opinion, be it yours, be it mine, be it anybody else's, that box signs are not attractive. That true? What's
well,
the matter with Vanderhyde signs? Nothing, I don't think, is there?
so you're obviously correct that everybody has an opinion, but right now, my opinion is what I'm presenting to you is what the planning commission is talking about, which the city council at some point will approve. And of course, I wasn't here in two thousand
I
eight
understand that.
or before that.
Not your fault, not mine.
So the definitions here, what is the definition that the planning commission is proposing? I think that's,
Don't have.
Well, so the discussion at the last meeting was, okay, obviously there's an issue here. And this precipitated by business who basically said, well, you know, box sign or nothing. And so the solution that we came up with for the time being is that we just won't accept a square or rectangular box. But we're taking this as an opportunity to fix the definition and do something that's appropriate for the future.
Who's complaining?
he just explained.
Somebody from two thousand eight, when they passed the law.
So if it's not an issue now, why are we making it an issue?
It is an issue because I have a law that I'm required to follow. And people are presenting these signs that I cannot approve of. Because the law says no box signs.
Gotcha.
So I'd like to fix that.
Internal illumination is the issue here, or the square, the shape is the issue here?
Where,
Well, I have my opinions because as zoning administrator, I have to enforce the law and without good guidance. I'm trying to say, well, look, I get that rectangulars and squares are maybe the less attractive version, which is why I took this to the planning commission. I said, what do you guys want me to do? Part of it was, well, okay, we can understand that rectangles and squares are maybe less attractive, but we also need to work on fixing this. So that's what I'm here for. I'm not looking for a strict opinion today, but as business owners,
So, I have an opinion, okay? You're driving up our street. If a sign is just stuck on the side of a building, how are you supposed to see it? You can't. So signs that are like this, that are illuminated, what's wrong with that? You guys, you're making this, it's stupid. It is so stupid.
I don't think it's the illumination piece that's the problem.
Yeah, but the
That's what
shape.
it is here.
The shape. Who cares, you guys? If it's a good looking sign, who cares what the shape is?
Nobody does except he's gotta comply with the law.
I get it, but it just makes no
this-
Ms.
sense,
Ensley, could you define a good-looking sign for me?
It's her opinion.
right? It's my
Right.
opinion.
So should I appoint you as my deputy, sign, czar to?
No, I don't want that job. But what I'm saying is, if there is a rectangle sign that is there and it looks good and they're maintaining it, let them put a new front on it if they need.
Are you recommending to the
Whatever.
planning commission that we should just change the law to say if it's a good-looking sign, it's okay?
I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is like, saying that it has to be a specific shape or it can't be rectangular, it can't be square. How does that make any sense?
So if I scribble on some cardboard, the name of my business and I.
That's
staple
not
it,
what I said.
But if we're eliminating sign standards and sign requirements, that's what you're gonna
Have
end
you
up.
guys looked at other people's sign ordinances?
Yes,
Because I can tell you, if you drive through Rockford, there's box signs, people.
okay.
And there's square signs and there's rectangle signs.
Well, the ordinance here doesn't say anything about square or rectangle. It says internally illuminated.
Right. And there's
Which is the
internally,
issue.
I mean, there's a picture today on Facebook of everybody in front of the corner bar kissing. Everybody see it. 5 of them. That's a rectangle or a square sign. Internally illuminated. So why don't we look at some other ordinances and see what they look like? I mean, just to say that you're gonna go up our street and say, you know, everybody.
Shapes are gonna be more expensive
Yes.
too, if you're worried about making it cost prohibitive for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right.
Give a moratorium for a while on new businesses. 6 months, a year, and where you have to comply with the sign ordinance or change it or don't enforce it. That's what I do.
These are one of the things they're talking about doing, is having a graduated time frame.
Well, but it's a 2008 law. This didn't happen yet.
So
Yeah.
why are we doing it now? Because you're getting beat.
'Cause there was a
You're
complaint.
trying to do the right thing.
No,
I understand
I've been enforcing this law since I came on board in 2016.
Okay.
The problem is I get businesses who,
Well, you couldn't have been if Loom has a sign that is not conforming.
planning commission approved of that.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes, I'm aware. And I'm sure there's been a sign that I may have approved that,
Cloud9. Just
Yep.
open.
Yep.
That's a box sign,
Illuminated,
illuminated
What
box
this
sign.
definition does.
is it square?
Yeah.
Or rectangle?
rectangular.
I'll go back and take a look because
I mean, it's just, it's hard.
Well, I think that's what we're all getting at here. I understand I understand the handcuffs that you have
Yeah,
on.
no, I get it.
This definition is awful and this should be removed completely.
Mm-hmm.
That has nothing to do with anything, and say that internal illumination with plastic or metal, that's what materials are now. I think that's gotta go, this just gotta go back to the drawing board, and I'd be happy to sit in a committee and you talk about this, but
That's what they're
what
looking
this is
for.
right here is nonsense, and that should be completely removed because we already have, I mean, we have a brand new one that was just done, so,
I mean, I'm happy to sit on it too, because, I mean, obviously it needs to be fixed and it needs to be not this, because you can't tell a new business owner that's coming to town, hang on, let me throw your hands behind your back and tie them up. You can't wait, you can't do a box sign, you can't do an internally illuminated sign, like, what are they supposed to do?
well, should there be minimum sign standards at all?
I think that certainly there can be, and I understand your point on the legal side of trying to say, you know, you can't define good looking. So that's an issue with the law in general, of course, but that's what our society lives by, so. But this definition and attacking box signs per se, that part can go away. And it's just gonna take a little more, it's gonna take a little more thought than we're gonna have here in a DDA meeting, I think, to come
So,
up with a better definition and a way
Mr.
to,
Chairman, if I may.
certainly.
So the issue is we can't just remove an ordinance until we have something to replace it with.
Sure.
So we need to figure out what that should look like.
Well, you could remove this without necessarily replacing that. There's a long policy here.
Right, but if, once you're going to rewrite an ordinance, like it has to be published with the Muni code, it has to, like, there's a whole process. And we can suspend things for periods of time, like, that's while we figure it out. You can say we're not enforcing this particular ordinance while, for 6 months or something to that effect. But what the manager is asking for, what the planning commission is asking for, is guidance on what should signage look like going forward. And I don't think anybody's advocating it shouldn't be illuminated. We're saying this is what we have, and we think it's not working.
Well, again, and again, we haven't taken the time to read
Right.
through the entire
But we think
sign
it's,
definition
but
or
we
the
think it's
ordinances,
not
but
working.
we, well, I think we're agreeing with that this box sign provision in particular is not working.
So
It's not
then the
workable.
question is, what should it be?
And again, I would say, as I did a moment ago, that that's probably a broader discussion than we're gonna have time for.
Okay, but
in a
they're
DDA
trying
meeting,
to put
but-
it on the table
Right.
because you're the business owners. So that you can advise the planning commission.
I have a question. Are we holding up a business from putting up a sign currently because of this ordinance?
Yes.
Oh.
I just received one, although I'm not 100% sure that it was, because of a box sign, because this person also failed to provide me with measurements, and the size of the building. So they basically put their name on a permit and then submitted it. But like I said, what precipitated this was another business submitting a box sign, which then eventually got approved of with the stipulation that it couldn't be square or rectangle. But I mean, to be fair, yeah, the only two types of signs I've seen basically submitted are box signs or the ones where it's just a piece of aluminum that they staple to the front of the building. That's the only two types of signs I see submitted here in Cedar Springs.
And one of the things that we've talked about with the planning commission is should the ordinance maybe have a graduated,
Yeah,
Like-
that's what you said.
like what you
Right.
can get the first 5 years.
is fine.
that
I
you're
think
open.
The issue, correct me if I'm wrong, is perhaps the one stapled to the building,
I
not
think
necessarily
that's
at the box.
problem.
That's another problem that I'd like to take care of at the same time. But box signs, by and large, if you put up a box sign structure, that structure will be there for the next 40 years. Because it is cheaper to replace the front than put up a new sign.
Don't disagree, and I think some of us up here as business owners are going, so,
And the response I have to that is, then you're just gonna have the same looking signs for the next 40 years. And I mean, I don't think anybody in this room is gonna tell me that these square rectangular box signs look better than channel cut letters or awning signs or flag signs or any of the other options. To me, they kind of give off a vibe of, the corner liquor store, which has had that same sign up for 30 years and it's faded yellow.
Maybe more of the problem is what the condition of the sign is.
I was gonna say,
versus what the
that
shape
may
of
be-
the sign's older.
Which is one of the things that people have said is some of the box signs look very yellowed and faded and.
So they should be.
If you guys
Well,
can imagine.
But again, how do you make that determination? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, we need some language.
Also wildly unpopular to contact a business and say, hey, you gotta replace your sign 'cause it looks bad.
But a lot of their buildings look bad. You're that same point. If they can't afford to fix their sign and they can't afford to fix their building, obviously it's all not good.
We're gonna say enclosed. You can't, forget the rectangle, square, enclosed. That eliminates putting a piece of aluminum on the front of the building. Signs must be enclosed. Gotta go for that for a while. Frame.
again, this is, as we're seeing already, I don't wanna,
I feel like we're beating it down.
Yeah.
the line.
Yeah.
so this is probably a longer discussion that might have to be referred to a committee or some other forum than to sit here and debate this.
Will you be creating a committee in the near future?
Well, I don't think they're necessarily asking for that. They're asking for an opinion from the business owners, or they're asking for an opinion from the DDA.
Yes, yes.
Too many of us with too many different opinions.
The business owners would be different than this board. This is
I
certainly.
would think that you'd almost need a committee. in all honesty. Because this is, for all town. I mean, I see where plazas, they have this uniform that this is the way it's gonna be and your advertisement has to fit into this area. That's it. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. It's just gotta fit in that area. And I think somebody should be looking into it further
Well,
to make it more
But
consistent.
again, I think what I was getting to though is if this is a planning commission question, would this be a planning commission committee rather than us trying to create a committee to do, to present them with an opinion?
The planning commission, Mr. Chairman. Yeah.
Yes.
The planning commission can just do this. Like, they don't have to have, they're not gonna have a committee. They will just hash it out and make a decision. And then they will send it to city council and we will support it or we will send it back to them. What they're trying to do is seek out information from the people who actually have to do this and who in theory are the people who want the businesses to look nice. What should that look like?
Mhm.
There are no business owners on the planning commission, are there?
I don't, well. Does Lisa own a business in town?
No,
No, then no,
that's, I think where DDA needs to help with guiding.
right. And they're trying to, like, they can tell you about things like structural things and they can tell you about spaces and they can tell you about the, Supreme Court regarding what can stay on a structure. But
I'm
the
looking,
piece of like, what is an attractive sign to make your community, your business community attractive? I think they want.
I'm looking at the
input.
examples that are in the packet here and I mean, which start on page 13. But to me, there's a big difference between the aluminum slapped on a panel than the ones that have internal illumination. I mean,
Well,
I don't,
Let me ask this question then, because getting into a fight about box signs, I think is kind of going off the rails. First of all, does anybody know what a sign like Perry's Place might cost? Piece of aluminum, piece of plastic, square rectangle, slapped up against the side of a building. What does that cost?
I had to guess probably under 5,000,
For just a piece of aluminum like that?
probably under 2 or 3 actually for that one.
Because
particular
the
one.
city, the Heart of Cedar Springs sign that we put out, the Heart of Cedar Springs, which is essentially the same thing, I think only a couple $100. It's about the same size. So what is a box sign then, a rectangular box sign with the internal illumination cost?
But again, the hair company and Family Chiropractic, Jasmine Street, administrative office, I don't think there's anything wrong with any of those signs. The only one that's eternally illuminated, it may be the pet, but that's because it's old. But how do you regulate old?
Well, we do have provisions in the signed ordinance that says, that, they gotta be upkept, and good appearance and blah, blah, blah. But again, going back to the businesses sure don't like being told to spend money.
Oh, I understood that, but that's not even in the same league with CCG Prime or Perry's Place or American Real Estate Services. Those aren't,
And then another part of it is, if you look at the chiropractic sign in the strip mall at Muskegon and Main Street, it's a square rectangular sign compared to the channel cut signs that surround it. It looks out of place. It looks odd. If we have signage standards, we could kind of eliminate that,
How do we do that? Do we go to them and say you have this long to replace your sign?
No,
this is moving forward. We cannot force people who have legal signage to replace them immediately.
this would be the next sign.
So what if the chiropractic place moves out?
The new people,
They will have to remove the box sign
Hold on a
or
second.
they can strike it?
no, they would put a new frame in there.
Which is why it will be there for the next 40 years.
Yep. Okay.
But signs that don't have any structure behind them, like the ones that are slapped up against the wall, second those come down, the signage no longer exists. It's no longer non-conforming. So they would then have to be required to meet the minimum standard.
So like Perry's Place, he wouldn't have to take his sign down and replace.
We're not talking about
Unless he
making,
moved.
we're not talking about making anyone
Yeah, okay.
replace or remove anything. We're
But-
talking about force going forward. What should signs look like?
And I should point out in the last 6 months, we've had two, what I would call junk stores move into town. Who have, for lack of a better word, stuff that, you know, comes in on pallets and they put it into their store for sale, right? Those are not gonna be well capitalized businesses, and they're not gonna have enough money to put up a $5,000 sign. So, do we want to consider those, or what type of signage we're gonna require them to, you know, install?
Well, I still go back to the. I have a far less problem with places like the chiropractic, even though it doesn't fit the other ones, as structured illuminated sign than I would with the ones that are slapped on the side of a building. So I mean, that to me is where the issue. There's a clear delineation between one that's just screwed onto the side of the building versus one that has internal illumination.
Well, so for right now, can I report back to the planning commission that you'd like to see the thin aluminum plastic signage that's screwed into the side of the building removed from the approved signage?
I'm not saying remove, but those would be the ones that
From
I,
the approved signage.
Going forward, yes.
moving forward, yeah, those are the ones that I think,
No one's making
this is just my
anybody,
opinion. I mean, I'm not
nobody's
speaking
making
for the
anyone
board, but-
take any sign down.
Understood that, but we're talking about moving forward and it still is. That's me, but I don't have a problem with the ones that are internally illuminated.
Mr. Chairman, you could maybe take a straw poll of the people on the,
Well, I don't think we have even an opinion to take a straw poll on unless somebody wants to offer one.
you could ask each person what their position is on these screwed on signs that are not illuminated.
Fair enough, but again, that isn't answering the question.
Well, if you're,
Rose, do you have an opinion? If we just go down the line?
I don't really have an objection to like, the signs that are screwed onto the building. I don't know what the deal is on the, Main Street Thai restaurant. I think it's a good looking sign. Is that a legal sign or an illegal sign?
Basically, it was a box sign with a peculiar shape from the previous business.
Okay.
They tried to utilize the sign structure
Mm-hmm,
of the business.
mm-hmm,
They kept the same name, Main Street.
mm-hmm.
And that's, again, part of the issue is that if box signs go up, they never come down.
Yeah, cause they're wired and they're expensive and, I don't see a huge deal reusing something as long as you make it look better, but, signs are expensive. If they're still readable and attractive and neat and not stained or broken.
So to summarize, you would not have a problem with any of the signs that are depicted here?
Not really.
That's what I was
Laura?
gonna say.
Well, you don't have to name anything specifically, but,
I'm-
all right, Bernie?
Well, I don't have a problem with anything existing. I think if as a group or as a board or city council, whoever, if you don't want screw-on signs, that's fine. I could live with it. I don't think they're as nice as other signs. But what I really do think is I don't wanna make it hard to do business for business. Okay? And by doing that, you're making it harder to do business. Now, that's my opinion. We don't need to make it harder for somebody to come in. That's my opinion.
Sally?
That's all I got.
Yeah, low funded, I mean, a lot of places start low funded. I mean, you gotta cut someplace. And if your signage, it's like advertising, you gotta have it. And I think everybody's trying to figure out what the best that they can do for promoting their business. I think it's one of those things. I think somebody needs to do some homework and figure out what other areas are doing on their signage. What kind of conformity do they ask for? I would like to see somebody check on that stuff.
Jody?
I think as long as the sign looks nice and it's tasteful, it obviously has to get approved before businesses post it. Like, that's part of the process right there, as long as it looks nice. I don't have a problem with either the screw-on or the box signs. And like she said, to get new businesses coming into town, like, that's one of the things that they're gonna have to struggle through if we start limiting that and making them spend more money. Not gonna make it
Nobody here
easier for
wants
them.
anything bad about any of the signs of their fellow business people,
Mm-hmm.
but I can't define what looks nice.
True.
You can't put looks nice in an ordinance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We get,
It's like-
we get that, that's the problem with legally defining, so.
I think if you
Did
get
you have an
too
opinion you'd like to
stringent-
express?
I think that one of the things that I would look at if this were coming to me from planning commission, city council is it of a durable quality? Does it fade? Because that's part of the difficulty we have, is some of these box signs are faded. And nobody wants to say, we're gonna make you go change this. So it needs to be written in that it has to be of a material that doesn't fade, or that it has to be replaced when it fades. I also think the screw-on kinds have the same kind of problem. The lettering comes off, the paint comes off, and this is also where we were talking about the idea of maybe that could be for 5 years. And then you would be expected to upgrade. My concern would be that it's that overtime maintenance piece of it.
Why don't we have a?
No,
word
but-
for
Well,
it?
but I'm saying that's what I would like to see in
Put in it.
So I'll,
put in the ordinance language.
we're gonna move on and I'll just kind of summarize. I mean, the upkeep thing, though, that isn't gonna make any difference even if you did this change, because if a sign is approved, then it fades. And I'll use our own example of that. We had channel letters and circle signs, which wouldn't have been affected by this, that got sun rotted within, 2-3 years, and we had to go through and replace all those faces again. So you're still falling back on the individual business that's gonna have enough pride and or resources to do that. I'm not sure that this ordinance is gonna solve that issue anyway,
Well, it can if you
But I
put the
will-
language in the ordinance.
but that's different than prohibiting box signs.
Right, I'm saying
So-
the entire signage ordinance,
I would,
that would be. a
I'm,
piece
okay,
of what
finishing
looking
my
for.
finishing my
Sure.
view on this, but I would strongly, disagree with the prohibition on box signs. I don't particularly care for the ones that are screwed on to buildings. So that would be my line of demarcation.
I think something we need to
With that-
consider is if we get too crazy with a sign ordinance, like the one store that he's talking about that comes to town, right? You just take your sign and purchase it. That's what you're gonna start seeing if we get too crazy.
Take the what?
She just taped her sign on her door. So,
I don't know what business you're talking about.
one of the pallet stores.
Okay.
Yeah.
'Cause you can't just tape a sign on the door either.
Well, you kind of, it's in the inside.
Yeah, if it's inside a window, that's permissible.
Exactly, but see what I'm saying? Like, we have to be a little bit careful about what we're doing. Just because we don't agree with what's coming to town, or if that maybe you don't agree with what's coming to town, I don't know. We have to be conscious of that. They're still a business, they're still trying, and kudos to them.
Okay, well, I don't know. I think in doing this, we don't necessarily have a clear opinion here aside from this. Perhaps needs to be considered a little more fully before any decisions are ultimately made. Would that be fair?
I would advocate the planning commission is in the same place. Which is why they're in part coming to you all for guidance.
Okay, well, I mean, we're not gonna, again, we've already spent way too much time on this, so, let's move on, I think, with a, at this point, but, let's move to section B, the facade.
No, we got library snow removal.
This is B, facade improvement program, we're only on B. Just page, started
Oh,
on
yeah.
page 26 of your
Sorry.
packet. Sir?
So this was supposed to be tied in with the previous, discussion, but I think we got off the rails there. So we've talked about this in the past, the board, didn't seem to be interested in it the last time, but I think it's one of those high impact, low cost programs. I shouldn't say low cost, low time cost programs. That I think could really make a difference in the downtown. So I brought a number of other municipalities and kind of see their programs and how they work. But I understand there could be some issues with this as well. We're probably only looking at a couple of grants per year to help, businesses improve their facades or improve their signage. But this is one of those programs where if you are a business who takes pride in their business, or if you feel like you need to do some exterior improvements, the DDA could do a 50-50 match, so that is not entirely funded by your business alone. Now, some of the issues I think I could identify already would be, you're gonna have some longtime businesses in town who are gonna say, well, you're a new business, why should we invest money in you? You haven't proven yourself. Whereas you're gonna have new businesses that's saying, well, I need money to have nice signage, I need money to get started. And you're gonna have the problem of the businesses that already keep themselves in good shape are gonna be in less need of the money versus the businesses who do not keep themselves in good shape. I think there might be a little penalization that you might see, veteran businesses not wanting to invest in businesses who don't invest in themselves. So those politics aside, I present these possible options for you guys to look at and let me know if you're interested in pursuing this.
I'd be interested in pursuing a loan situation to some of the businesses that might need their kitchen improved or their bathrooms improved as a loan. Maybe they wouldn't be able to get a loan someplace else. They could get a loan from DDA.
DD is not that well funded.
Opens up a can of worms too, if you're administering a loan.
Yeah, that's a
Well,
different thing than a
yeah.
50-50 grant.
Is the 50-50, is that what you're seeing? I mean, I'm just trying to scroll through all these. Is that what you're seeing consistently on
I've
them?
seen 25%, I've seen 33%, I've seen 50%.
Historically, we did 50.
I think 50 is the most common.
In 2000,
Of course, you guys could make it anything you want.
we did do this once before, but it wasn't DDA funding,
That was HUD funding,
HUD funding, and it was very successful.
but it's not available anymore.
Right, but I'm saying, but as a 50-50 match, it was utilized and it was very successful in improving the facade and signage of the downtown.
So, I mean, is this something you guys are even interested in? Details of how we move forward is one thing, but you guys have money. And part of your goal is to help make the businesses downtown look nicer. This is a quick way to do it. But we also have to have businesses interested in doing it.
Where would we start, Mike? With advertising or,
Well, I think
Bingo.
where we'd start is developing the program itself.
okay,
You guys have a budget each year. Each year you say, we're gonna put $5,000 towards one improvement. One business improvement. And then you say, hey, we're gonna take applications this year for $5,000 or whatever. Out to the business community and see who submits.
Developing and figuring it out will be the next job. I think the question being asked is whether there's will on this board to facilitate a facade improvement program.
Correct. That's the question.
Okay, so that's the question.
We can straw poll this again, or we can just basically have a non-binding that, yeah, we want to move forward, or no, we don't.
I think you should have a sign grant. There you go.
There you go.
And so, Mr. Byer, the important question there is, are we willing to give that sign grant to new businesses
Absolutely, anybody
who may not last
And
3
accept-
weeks?
would be.
Or do we turn around to the businesses who've been here for 5 or 10 years and say, hey, your sign is pretty faded, it'd be nice if you, replace it?
I think that's up for discussion, but I would have a problem either way.
To the board.
But again, let's stick to the question, though. The question is, do we want to pursue this? So
Yeah.
Mr. Byer says, yeah.
Yes.
Sally,
Yes.
yes.
I think it's an
yeah.
excellent idea.
Okay.
I recommend.
So it sounds like the board wants to pursue this. We'll move forward with it. Which I think is the question that we're answering today. We can move on to discussion of sidewalks.
So the sidewalk and Main Street paving programs, again, as businesses, you need to be aware of projects that are coming for next year. I'm sure you guys all had fun with the bridge project. Appreciate your patience with that. So these should be significantly less involved, should not really cause significant impacts to your businesses. The Main Street paving program should leave the road open 99% of the year next year. They theoretically can go from 17 to 18 mile with just a week or so. So it shouldn't be that much of an impact. But we are currently planning on doing 3 curb bump outs at Maple Street, Cherry Street, and Beach Street, I believe. That's gonna be more work. Again, shouldn't close the road, but could impact the sidewalks around those areas. But unfortunately, due to all the rising costs, as you guys have probably seen, the original $480,000 estimate that we got for this project 4 years ago is now $720,000. So I've identified 2 funds within your within your budget for parking lots and sidewalks, which actually total to about $26,000. But I'm asking you to motion to approve spending $20,000 of that towards the sidewalk and Main Street paving projects. So even though one is for parking lots, this will repaint and fix up nice the on-street parking in front of all your businesses. And so I'm asking for a contribution to that effect. And I guess any thoughts, questions, concerns you might have about either of those projects.
It's a separate, but when are we doing Main Street? Prior to or after? I guess I don't understand that.
So we're going to be bidding this out probably in January. To be accomplished sometime between January and October, well, I guess mid-September.
23?
Correct.
Then the Main Street repaving,
Same.
same time.
This is that project.
This is, I
This
thought
upcoming
this was
summer.
just sidewalk.
So
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, okay,
I should
Okay.
clarify, we have three sidewalk projects going on.
right.
We have the Second Street, which is mostly Second Street. We have Fifth Street, which is mostly Fifth Street. And then we have the Main Street Mill and Fill, which is also doing the sidewalks largely along Main Street. It's not gonna be doing mid-block repairs. It's gonna be doing where the roads meet the sidewalk.
Gotcha.
All the ADA compliance, all the curb bump outs.
That's your word. Okay, thank you.
So at this point, we're asking, I would entertain a motion then to approve the $20,000 contribution.
Second.
to the program. No, I
Or
need a motion
first.
first.
All right, I'll make the motion.
Support.
Second.
As this is a financial expenditure, we will do a quick roll call, please. Ms. Arp,
Yes.
Mr. Byer,
Yes,
Ms. Ensley,
Yes.
Ms. Conley,
Yes.
Ms. Rowland,
Yes.
Ms. Powell,
Oh, yes. Sorry.
Ms. Allen.
Yes.
Mr. Ringler votes yes, and we have 2 absentees.
Thank you.
Motion carries. On to D, a discussion on the snow plowing on the sidewalks around Maple.
So I should point out that Rose sent me a whole long list of things she wanted to talk about today, and at the last second says we'll put those in January, so.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So yes, as you guys are aware, the DPW department is small and they primarily focus on the streets, not the sidewalks. We currently hire O'Dowd to do an early morning pass. Hopefully that's still working out for you guys. One of the things that I guess the library and Ms. Powell are asking is whether the DDA is also willing to fund snow removal around the library. Now, a question-
Sidewalks.
sidewalks around the library. So one question, of course, I have is when O'Dowd does their snow removal, they're simply doing a 4-foot pass along the Main Street sidewalks. Main Street sidewalks are about 8 feet wide, so they're definitely not doing the whole thing. DPW is supposed to clean up afterwards after they dump the roads. Of course, a lot of your businesses are open long before that, so I'm sure you're doing some cleaning as well. But what are we looking for, Ms. Powell, in talking to O'Dowd? A complete removal of snow from the library, because that could get costly.
I didn't expect more than they do on our Main Street sidewalks. I know there would be some detail work done, but maybe Cammy can fill in on what she has to do with all the snow as a library director. Yes. Right. Right.
The increase in the amount of sidewalks that are coming or projected to come, that just is not. I mean, we have to take a look at what is feasible. And currently the library is underfunded. I don't know if you're aware of that, but we are taking money out of our appropriations balance, which basically is equal to our savings account to operate every year. So when we get 2 more sidewalks,
So if you guys are not aware and haven't looked at the sidewalk project, this is page 65 of your packet.
What page? 55?
65. I was able to arrange for the sidewalks to now extend completely around the parking lot of the library. Because previously people were being forced to walk within the
Yes.
drive aisle of the parking lot.
yes, and they still are.
And so now we're gonna have sidewalks that go around the outside so that people can walk safely on sidewalk, but that's what she's referring to.
And it's part of the walkable community connection that we're trying to make for downtown.
In any case, so, Ms. Howe, are you asking the DDA to fund a push around the sidewalks that surround your parking lot? Presumably from Main Street, around the full part of your parking lot area? What are you asking for?
That would be nice. Yes.
Because, and this is just my, I haven't talked to O'Dowd or anything, but I'm not sure. They could do a full cleaning of the whole entryway area, but it's probably a significant amount of money. But adding just a 4-foot push through there should not be very expensive. But I've not received a quote yet.
Rose had a quote.
Yeah, Cammy gave me a quote and I forgot to give it to you, Mike. I don't know if it's still,
I'm going into the library, that section, that is easy. It is the 8-foot. Here, there, and I mean, that would be much easier to do than cleaning everything every time.
Just to clarify, Mr. Manager, may I ask a question?
Certainly.
Mr. Manager, just to clarify, so the O'Dowd's does this trek around, right, for downtown? And then our DPW goes through and cleans after they've done the streets, correct? No?
Yes, so the city DPW focuses on the roads. and
Right.
They go around with their little Kubota afterwards and tries to clean up, but
After, post out O'Dowd's, right?
yes, but it's all,
Are they also doing the library?
The
that later
the section that is along Main Street, they are doing,
Okay, but not the loop.
not the loop.
Okay, so would it be possible to include the loop on the swoop through with O'Dowd's and then also then add the additional cleanup on the later part to
So I-
DPW?
thought the cleanup was already part of the DPW, and maybe I was wrong on this, but maybe I thought the library staff was accomplishing that before the DPW get to it, similar to what the business.
Got it.
But I'm looking at a quote of $55. I forget what the push cost is about $300 per push. So, I mean, that's the question today, is whether DDA is willing to fund an additional $55 for that additional work. Per snowfall. But that was part of the conversation I had with,
What? Sorry, that was cutting you off.
part of the conversation with the DPW this morning was, I thought that was already part of their process, was that they were supposed to come up and help clean up the sidewalk area around the library as well. I might be mistaken about that.
So I'd want to be a little careful here because, I mean, we've had another business along it's already fussed about what we are and aren't doing. This is one of the most significant annual expenditures that we make to go up and down Main Street. And if we're getting into precedence of going on side streets, we have other public areas, we have a pocket park, 2 pocket parks potentially here, plus the library. Before we start committing to some of these things, I think we need to be very careful about what we're committing to. Obviously, all the businesses and all the property owners are responsible for their snow removal. And we are doing up and down Main Street already as a city,
Is DDA correct?
as a DDA. And it's one thing to go here with, if it's $55 to get a portion of this, but as noted, if we're gonna end up with a whole bunch more sidewalks, are we gonna end up going up and down Second Street? Are we gonna go up down the next street over by the time we start adding these sidewalks?
Yes, I'm aware of the implications. Because there are several businesses along the side streets that I'm sure would also appreciate this.
A portion of their tax dollars are also going to this. So. And admittedly, tax dollars, as we talked about before the meeting, certainly are coming from their pool of money as well, but.
That is correct. Even though the library is nonprofit, a portion of your money does come from. the
Yeah,
library.
$2,300 is slated out of our budget for 22-23, which would more than take care of this.
$2,300 is, I don't quite understand.
The TIF funding is the add-on in property value, and that's deducted from what would otherwise be allocated. That's
For
what
the
funds the
library.
DDA for the library.
Okay,
They face that in any given year. The next year it'll be different. But
yes,
same as it from the schools and everything else.
yes.
Except
Of
the
the
school
city's
isn't
budget,
part
of
of
the city's budget.
well, the school isn't part of the downtown district.
Of course they're not.
'Cause they're just not located there.
So who's responsible for shoveling the sidewalk around City Hall, since that's a public building? DPW. So DPW is also responsible for the library, or is that a separate entity?
Again, I thought the DPW was managing this, but I
Uh-huh.
thought it was the library staff was getting to it first.
Right,
Because the DPW's primary responsibility is the roads.
right.
Which is
Or
why
act-
the businesses have hired O'Dowd's to do
The
the sweep.
businesses didn't hire adults, the DDA did.
Well,
DDA did, yeah.
the DDA has hired O'Dowd's to do that sweep
Mhm.
before DPW can get to it, because the DPW is doing streets first.
We all have our own private services, or we're out there shoveling as well to clean up our own sidewalks. We'll be adding more sidewalks too after next year.
Well, I think regardless of whether O'Dowd plows those sidewalks or cares for those sidewalks, the librarians will still have to do some detail work, no doubt about it. But for us to expect them to be responsible for the whole darn thing, I think is an overreach for a public entity.
Well, the question here then before us is that gonna be a burden back on the DDA to now fund a service for that, or is that gonna be back on the DPW? I think that's really the question that we're facing.
I think it would depend on whether the DPW can get to it before the library opens at 10 o'clock.
Well, that may or may not happen with O'Dowd's either. I mean, it doesn't always happen when our business is open either, so.
Weekend, we had knee deep snow out front until Sunday. When Pat went.
So did O'Dowd not come through this
I
week?
have no idea. Pat
We
went
did
out
on Saturday, cause I went by my place, your place, I hand shoveled it myself after O'Dell's went through. It was,
Yeah.
we got a lot of
Same
snow.
with
We
us.
got so much snow.
Yeah, Saturday night, we got
Saturday night.
pounded.
We did it multiple times, but they did finally come through.
Yep.
Again, that's their deal. They're gonna do it 24 every
Once,
24
right.
hours.
And as a private business owner, I had to do it too,
Mhm.
front and back. But this is a public entity. So I guess it's up to us.
Why is it up?
Well, the sidewalks are public entities. I mean, we've learned that,
Right. Right.
learned that very dramatically this year anyway, so.
And so is the library. Do we expect our librarians to shovel the sidewalks?
Everybody's saying that, that's it. The question is, where is the funding gonna come from to do that? Either coming from their staff's hand, it's coming from the DPW, or it's coming from the DDA.
Or a combination.
Yeah, that's why we're talking about it at DDA today. It is downtown. It's a very busy intersection. Your customers use it,
DDA captures a piece of their TIF dollars.
right?
To me, that's the piece that,
They're doing the piece on Main Street, which is, they're so far, contract.
And we do,
Mr. Manager, may I ask a question?
That's up to the chairperson.
Is it correct that the library could request some funds be held back and not all go to DDA?
Good legal question, I don't know.
I believe that's true. That's on the docket right now in Detroit.
so we're about halfway through with winter. Can we reasonably support that this year? If we're gonna get snow like this for a month or more.
Another one coming Christmas Eve.
And I'm sure, I know the library will, detail it. Because it is a clean sweep, but at least it's a beginning. It's just, to me, a librarian's job is to manage the library, not the sidewalks or the parking lot.
The parking lot is plowed.
And the snow is,
I don't know what they do with the snow. But-
Some of it gets up onto the sidewalk. When they come through on that pass, it puts it up onto the sidewalk.
We're gonna be getting into a place, we haven't been there in a while, but we're gonna be getting into a place we're gonna have to start figuring out what do we do with the snow? Because when it comes this way from the sidewalk and this way from the street, at some point, we have in the past hauled it out to West Street.
yes.
That was a,
I think that's a whole nother thing.
That's a
Right,
whole nother
I'm
topic.
just-
We've dealt with
but
that some.
I'm just
Right.
saying, it
Is
will
there-
be a piece that comes.
All right, does anyone want to offer a motion to add this, or is there will here to do this?
I have one question. You said that money, the TIF money, we get some TIF money from the library?
Correct, $2,300.
That's-
TIF is incremental funding, so as property values increase, we get a
Right.
portion of that increase. Some of that comes from what would otherwise be an increase to
Right.
entities such as the library.
And I think we should give some back to the snow. Now, that's not a motion, that's just my opinion. I'll make a motion.
Okay,
I don't know how much. I don't know how to make the motion.
Fire is your motion to approve of the quote from O'Dowd's,
Which is $55?
$55.
I agree. That's my motion.
I support that.
Any other discussion? As it is an expenditure, we will run through a quick roll call. Ms. Arp,
Yes.
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Ms. Ensley.
Yep.
Ms. Conley,
yes.
Ms. Howland,
Yes.
Ms. Powell,
Yes.
Mr. Ringler votes no, and 2 absentees. All right, we move on to correspondence.
I'll make sure to put in your 2023 calendar. Make sure you guys have that. And Cadillac Trail Town application, I think we talked about the last meeting, did we?
I don't recall it, but is this their first year as a trail town? Or are they,
So basically, here's what happens. I've got a guy who, is a friend of the White Pine Trail who stops in to chat with me on occasion.
Uh-huh.
And he recommended two things this last visit. One
Yeah.
was that the city become a trail town,
Yes.
which is.
I thought we did.
It was something that was proposed to us a couple years ago. It's
Mhm.
not a terribly difficult thing to accomplish, but it's a very kind of detail-oriented, time-consuming thing to do.
Mhm.
I swear I signed that under
No.
that.
We
Nope.
did the, option, sort of an option thing,
It's an MOU.
whatever that is,
Nothing since I've been here anyways.
right?
But it's something I referred to Sue Spar. I thought maybe the CBDT could work on it for us.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was brought up.
So that's part of it. And the second part of it was that the city has the last two locations on the White Pine Trail before you hit, I think, Big Rapids that are not paved. Which is technically true. There actually is some asphalt under the Maple Street crossing, but it's been covered up by dirt when this CS Manufacturing decided to add their driveway to our road. And then down by the wastewater treatment plant. So they asked if we would pave those, which we'll see about adding at some future paving project. But yeah, so I just put it in your correspondence so you guys are aware of it. And same thing with the synopsis for the DDA strategic planning session. We will have to get into our budget discussions at the next meeting. And don't forget, we'll have a couple of informational meetings. I'm not sure if there's anything specific you'd like me to talk about from the informational perspective. If so, send me an email, please. I'll do my best to put together a presentation. You guys ready for my manager report?
Please.
But one thing I would point out is, well, two things I would point out. So, I try to put this agenda together about a week before your meeting. If you guys have things that you want discussed at the meeting, please send me an email at least a week ahead of time. Helps me, put the agenda together. Otherwise, I'm trying to do this, on my own, and I don't always know what you're interested in talking about. Second thing is, we're obviously having some attendance and quorum issues here. I'm thankful we were able to get quorum today. The clerk will be putting together the attendance report, which, the city council will be made aware of. And if you're not attending these meetings, you're not participating in the meetings, we may have some people removed from this board. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. We appreciate you guys. We appreciate all the information and work you guys put in, but we do need you to attend. So if you're not able to attend, please let us know.
Thank you. We would move on then to trustee comments. We'll start with Ms. Powell.
Have a great Christmas, everybody, healthy Christmas and a happy new year, and, carry on.
Fire?
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Have a good new year.
Happy holidays. Everyone enjoy yourselves. Be safe.
I just have a quick thing that we put in for a very large grant that I think you all were a piece of for the part of Cedar Springs, and we just missed it. We were one out, but we will apply again next year. And there will be some additional pieces. There's a scoring system. And one of the things is to have letters from people in the community saying how this would be beneficial to your community. So that's a thing that we might be coming to you for next year to try to get that grant. And it's a $3 million, I don't know how much.
Total project is about $1.3 million, but the grants for about 300,000.
300,000.
Matching 300,000 for 600,000 for the first phase.
So just
Get it.
if we can get it, it will be helpful. And again, as it pulls more people into the community, and it includes some things like additional outside bathrooms and yada yada. So we'll probably be nudging some of you for some letters to support that for next year. 'Cause we literally just missed it.
5 points.
Thanks. I will also wish everyone a good holiday. Please get out in downtown. I think you guys have a few things going on for the holiday as well. I'll be doing my annual bartending routine once a year on Christmas Eve. And I will echo the city manager's, comments too, that we need people here so we have a quorum, we can conduct business. We did miss one meeting this year without being able to have a quorum, so I'll ask maybe for the next, for January that we might revisit our policy on attendance, so. That I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Third. All in favor?
Aye.
You can actually just adjourn. The only motion that doesn't.
We like to
Okay.
be social.